My Aunt Mary, she's definitely the most helpful person in my life as far as music, because she gave me an electric Hawaiian guitar and an amplifier when I was like 8 years old. And she gave me a bass drum, and I'd strap that on and walk around with the Elmer Fudd hat on and my dad's tennis shoes and beat on the drum and walk around the neighborhood singing Beatles songs. Thought for sure I could be a rock star. There was no problem because I was so hyperactive and the world was in my hands. I could do anything. I knew that I could be the president if I wanted to, but that was a stupid idea. I'd rather be a rock star. All these kids my age found themselves asking the question at the same time, why in the fuck are my parents getting divorced? What's going on? All my other friends' parents are getting divorces too. Something's not right. Somehow, the way that our parents were brought up isn't the way it's supposed to be. They fucked up somehow. They've been living in a fantasy world, so they must have done something wrong. Fucking up over and over again with raising their children as teenagers because they don't understand the things that those kids need. I remember all my friends asking that same question, like 7 years old. But it's really a necessary time to be asking that, But it was just a plague. It was a total disease. It's hard to remember anything up until I was 7 years old, and that was the time that I was actually living with him, and he was my dad, and I had a mother and father, and after that, I lived with him for a short time, and then he got married, and after that, I was, so I just wanted to know that I don't have anything against him anymore, but I just don't want to talk to him because I don't have anything to share with him. I'm sure that would probably really upset him, but it's just the way it is.
The disintegration of the family in our national life. The family Bible recording dates of birth and baptism is no longer existent because few read the Bible, few give births, and few are ever baptized. One of the most evident symptoms of the breakdown of the family is divorce. The universalizing of easy divorce by the recent decision of the United States Supreme Court means that the institution of marriage is slowly degenerating into state-licensed free love.
Something's not right. Somehow, the way that our parents were brought up isn't the way it's supposed to be.
Polygamy and polyandry are recognized today on condition that husbands and wives, as the case may be, do not harness other husbands or wives together to the coach of their egotism, but that they hitch them up in tandem fashion or single file. If our courts continue to disrupt this natural unity of a nation, they will incapacitate us for international fellowship. For if we destroy this inner circle of loyalty through disloyalty, how shall we build up those larger international circles of loyalty from which world peace is derived? I sometimes wonder if it really does any good for a Christian to argue against the modern pagan who believes that divorce is legitimate and that marriage is a terminable pact of selfish fancy.
They fucked up somehow. They've been living in a fantasy world, so they must have done something
You're
wrong.
arguing from different premises. The majority of people who are opposed to the stability and continuity of family life do not believe in the moral law of God. They believe that man is only an animal, or that morality is self-interest, or that if there is a God, he never intended that we should not do as we please.
My story is exactly the same as 90% of everyone my age. The kids had the same exact kind of problems. They smoked pot for a few years during high school. They grew up during the era where there was a massive communist threat and everyone thought that we were going to die from nuclear war, and more violence started to infuse in our society, and everyone's reaction is the same.
Now, once you start with these principles, then certainly divorce is right. Then certainly we should shirk sacrifices. If we are only beasts and love is sex, then there's no reason in the world why anyone should assume responsibility. But why not go all the way? By the same principle, anything is right if I can get away with it. If bonds between husband and wife are revocable at will and for the advantage of self-love, why should not the treaties between nations be revocable at the will of either party? If a husband may steal the wife of another man, why should not Germany steal Poland?
I've never felt like I've really had a father, you know? I've never had a father figure who I could share
Broken
things.
fidelities, there will one day come a haunting conscience. As John Davidson put it, your cruelest pain is when you think of all the honeyed treasure of your body spent and no new life to show. Though then you feel how people lift their hands against themselves and taste the bitterest of the punishment of those whom pleasure isolates. Sometimes when darkness, silence, and the sleeping world gives vision scope, you lie awake and see the pale, sad faces of the little ones who should have been your children as they press their cheeks against your windows, looking in with piteous wonder, homeless, famished babes, denied your wombs and bosoms. Now set in contrast to this pagan view of marriage, the 7 principles of the Christian order in the family. First, marriage is one and unbreakable until death, both naturally and supernaturally, because love is eternal. Supernaturally, it is unbreakable, because the union of husband and wife is modeled upon the union of Christ and his church, which endures through the agelessness of eternity.
All my friends asking that same question, like 7 years old, but it's really a necessary time to be asking that, you know? So, it was just a plague. It was a total disease.
Second, the foundation of marriage is love, not sex. Sex is physiological and of the body. Love is spiritual and therefore of the will. Since the marriage contract is rooted not in the emotions but in the will, it follows that when the emotion ceases, the contract is not dissolvable. For the love of the will is not subject to the vicissitudes of passion. Marriage should be a series of perpetual and successive revelations, the sounding of new depths, the manifestation of new mysteries. The mystery of fatherhood and motherhood, which before never existed. And finally, the revelation of the mystery of being shepherds for little sheep, ushering them into the Christ who is the door of the sheepfold. All love ends in an incarnation, even God's. Fourth, every child is a potential nobleman of the kingdom of God. And parents are to take that living stone from the quarry of humanity, cut and chisel it by loving discipline and sacrifice, mold it on the pattern of the Christ truth until it becomes a fit stone for the temple of God, whose architect is love. At a time when the first wild ecstasies begin to fade, when the husband might be tempted to believe that another woman is more beautiful than his wife, and the wife might be tempted to believe that another husband is more chivalrous, then it is that God in his providence sends children. In each boy the wife sees the husband reborn in all of his chivalry and strength. And in each girl, the husband sees the wife reborn in all her sweetness and joy and delicacy. The natural impulse of pride that comes with begetting, the new love that overblooms the memory of a mother's pain. If the bringing of children into the world is today an economic burden, it is not because God's law is wrong. It is because our social system is wrong. And therefore, the state should remove the causes of that burden. The human must not be limited nor controlled to fit the economic. But the economic must be expanded to fit the human. Marital happiness is impossible without sacrifice. That is why we have to pray. That is why I ask every Jew and Protestant and Catholic in the radio audience to make our daily holy hour of prayer and meditation that American family life may be restored. And in addition to making this hour, including Holy Communion, Catholics should also revive the old family custom of the rosary every night. Begin it tonight and keep the family together. Now, such is the Christian position concerning marriage, and one that outside of the church is very largely misunderstood. It's so often said, oh, they can marry again. They're not Catholics. Or we hear it said, the Catholic Church says divorce is wrong. No. 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 Divorce is not wrong because the church says it is wrong. Why does the church say it is wrong? Because Almighty God says it is wrong. There's not one God for Catholics and another for Hottentots. And all who violate the natural law will be punished by God. A modern pagan is no more free to break God's law than a Catholic. Why is it that everyone practically outside of the church associates the objection to divorce with the Catholic Church? Simply because the Catholic Church today is about alone in defending the natural law of God. And if a time ever comes when the church alone defendeth the natural truth that 2 and 2 make 4, the world would say, oh, that's a Catholic doctrine. I tell you that if the natural law continues to be defended almost alone by the church, a day will come when Catholics will have to be prepared to die for the truth that apples are green in the springtime and that it is wrong to poison mother-in-laws. Men and women of America, awake. Raise your altars to life and love while you have time. If you have not found the citadel of married happiness, it is because you have failed to lay siege to the outer walls of your own selfishness. The soil that takes the seed in the springtime is not unfaithful to its messiahship of harvest. And so neither must you play recreant to the responsibilities of love. The fires of heaven which have been handed down to you as to an altar have been given not for your own burning, but that you may pass on the torch, that other fires may climb back again to the heavens from which they came. It was a family in the beginning, that drew a world of wise men and shepherds and Jews and Gentiles to the secret of eternal peace. It will be through the family again that America will be reborn. When the day comes, when mothers will consider it their greatest glory to be sacristans of love's fruit, and when fathers will regard it as their noblest achievement to be the stewards of love's anointed ones, and when children realize that nature set no limit to the number of uncles a man might have, but that a man can have only one mother. When we realize this, then America will be great.
I decided one time to just confront him. And so I went up to his bedroom. He was sitting on the side of the bed, and he was crying because I'd just arrived, and he knew it was breaking my heart. But I talked to him about it and everything that I'd learned about heroin. And I asked him if he was at the stage of where he was addicted to also the needle prick. And he burst into tears. And he was just ashamed.
I'm Kurt Loder with MTV News. Nirvana leader Kurt Cobain, an extraordinarily gifted singer, songwriter, and guitarist, was found dead in Seattle on Friday morning, apparently a suicide. His body was found at a house that he owned but didn't live in anymore on Lake Washington Boulevard. He was discovered by an electrician who was doing some work on the house. He had been killed by a blast to the head from a 12-gauge shotgun, and a suicide note found nearby, according to the electrician who found him, ended with the words, "I love you, I love you, I love you."
I've never felt like I've really had a father, you know? I've never had a father figure who I could share things with.